we are back for our last day of kitchen week, and I'm super excited about our little circuits project we're going to do today. We're going to make a little BuzzBot chef to buzz around our kitchen, and he'll just move around however he wants to, or she, however your little chef wants to move around the kitchen. These are what I call zombie robots that we're going to make today. We can't control brains, but they're a lot of fun to make. And I want to go over to gather just in case you haven't gathered them yet before we do our shout outs. But if you want a shout out, comment in our comment area to get a shout out. What you need is our instructions. This is going to be super useful if you are watching us at a different time than we are live, since when we're live, you guys can ask questions as we go. You're going to need some copper tape. You're going to need an LED and a battery. So these are things that we've used all of the past weeks for our paper circuit project. So these you guys should know by now, unless you're a new family. And if you are new, just know you can email me your address and I can send you some of these things so you can get started on your paper circuits. And then the new special item that you need is a little vibrating motor. And I know I sent out these to a lot of families. If it hasn't come yet, no worries. You can join us to watch and get ready, or you can just wait for this video and watch it when those come in the mail for you. All right. So those are the things that we're going to need. You also need something for legs. In this, I suggested paper clips, and I happened to mail out all of my paper clips. So I've got things like toothpicks that will also work, or if you don't have toothpicks or paper clips, something like straws or popsicle sticks will all work, so it's not a big deal. And then we need something for the body of our little chef bot. I have these tiny miniature solo cups, but if you have like a small recycled item, that will totally work for you. So it doesn't have to look like this. It could look like a yogurt cup or an applesauce cup or something like that, and that will all work. And then we need some Scotch tape to tape everything together when we don't want it to be a part of the circuit. And then I just have some other things like some markers to make decorations. But that is what we are going to need today. And then real quick before we get to our shout outs, we're also going to feed our sourdough starter. So if you've been with us all week, we started that sourdough starter on Monday, and we're going to continue to feed it and make it happy and healthy. And then we're also going to change the salt on our mummies, which we started at the very, very beginning. So 4 weeks ago. I cannot believe it was 4 weeks ago. So we're going to change the salt on our mummies today too, so you guys can continue to see that osmosis process in action. Let's see. And I don't think there's anything else we want to check in with. I do want to say, if you're a new family, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, get our notifications so that you know when we're coming live. And there's no pressure to join us every single day. We have a ton of science that we're doing. We're live every day, but you can pick and choose what works for you. And then you can also come at a time that works for you. So we are cataloging all of these live videos for you. And you do not need to worry like, oh my gosh, I have to get there at 11:30. Don't stress about it. You can come at whatever time works for you. And I know we do have a decent number of families who are coming when we're not live. And I think that's awesome. I love it. If you want to shout out and you're not coming when you're live, just email me and I'll work in that shout out for you. All right. So let's get to the shout outs and see who is with us today to make our awesome chef bots. They're so cute. I'm so excited about these. Who do we got today?
All right. Today, we've got Naomi.
Hello, Naomi.
She's number one.
Yes.
She is super excited.
I am really excited. Naomi had an awesome chef hat on Wednesday when we baked bread, and I really hope that we make some chef hats for our little chef bots. And I feel like Naomi is like, she's got all the inspiration. Maybe even if she's wearing it now. That would be cool.
We have Luke and Ryan. They're both here.
Hey, Luke and Ryan. I hope your vibrating motors arrived in the mail. We sent them out on Monday or Tuesday, I think.
We've got Amelia and Chloe.
Hello, Amelia and Chloe. And no Calvin. We're not actually cooking today. I know he doesn't like being in the kitchen, but we're making a robot. We
got Alex and Julianne for the first time.
Yay! Hello, Alex and Julianne. Welcome. I'm super excited that you're coming with us. It's going to be fun. We have so much fun plans, like the next how many ever weeks. Who knows how many weeks we have planned, but we have a lot of fun planned. We're doing pirates next week. Can't compete with pirates.
We have Jackson's here. I just saw Jackson
this
morning.
Jackson. I know. We know Jackson has the supplies. We dropped them off to him.
So can you show Jackson the motor, because he says he doesn't think he's got the motor.
It looks like this. It's like a little black dot with 2 wires hanging out. It doesn't look like your typical motor that we see when we think of motors and like Usually you think of like a big cylindrical thing that's going to drive a wheel. These are little tiny cell phone motors that we're using. And in fact, if you got your supplies from me at the very beginning, everybody should have a few of these little motors. And Jackson, I'm like 100% positive. Okay, maybe 99.9% positive. Because I packed that bag for you yesterday. So I'm almost positive you've got this little guy in there. It looks
like a battery.
Yeah, it looks like a teeny tiny battery.
He says he's got it.
Yes, good.
All right, we've got Kailani.
Hello, Kailani, and maybe Keikoa.
Maybe.
Keikoa can totally do this project.
We have Grayson and Connor.
Hello, Grayson and Connor.
And George and Henry.
Yes, George and Henry are back.
And I
love that we have these guys who are like regulars.
I think
where's
you'd be
Raiden?
excited about this, but Sadie says hi.
Sadie's here! Hi, Sadie! Oh, so excited! Sadie's our baby cousin. Well, not my baby cousin. She's my baby niece. She's my daughter's baby cousin.
She might need some help with this one.
Yeah, Sadie might, yeah.
She might not be.
I think we'll give Sadie like the cup, and Sadie could like gnaw on the cup. Probably don't want to give Sadie the batteries. Oh, I'm so excited you're watching this, Sadie.
And Miss Rachel's here.
Hello, Rachel.
And Callie is here.
Yes, yay! Hi, Callie.
And so Calvin's not here because he's at the community garden.
Ooh, good place to be gardening right now. Making it look good. We gotta plant our potatoes still.
Yeah.
Haven't done that yet.
That's right. It'll get done.
That's cool. No Raiden today?
No Raiden so far.
What? Raiden's a regular. I bet he'll watch us offline then. Or maybe he's like watching us and he just hasn't commented. Who knows? Yeah. All right, and Alex, was that Alex? You guys haven't started this, but super easy. All we did was mix equal amounts and weight of flour and water on Monday, and we've just been feeding it. And we have sourdough starter, which is really cool. We actually cheated a little bit last night. Okay, not cheated. We popped it in our oven to keep it warm, and it is so happy. We had a few explosions as we did this, but it's like there's so many bubbles in here. It's absolutely amazing. All of the bubbles we have, which is all of those yeast parts, they're breaking down that flour into sugars they can use. And then they are mixing that with oxygen and turning it into carbon dioxide. And what we've been doing every day is to feed it. We get rid of half of our starter, and you can bake stuff with this if you want to. So we actually baked some sourdough scones yesterday with our starter that we threw out, and they are amazing. Evan's bringing one in. In fact, they're so good, I have tried to bribe my children that the first person to find an owl in our forest today gets the extra scone. Because I want to see the owl. But we have rules. They have to be like from the house. All right, so we're going to add in some more flour for this yeast to break down and turn into energy and turn into farts. And the more that it breaks down, the more that it has energy to bud off. So yeast cells, very similar to human cells, because they have a nucleus and they have their DNA. But when they make extra yeast cells, they don't just make two. They actually have these little buds that look like tree branches almost that bud off. So they can make a whole bunch at the same time. And then we're going to add some water to this. And we don't want to add too much water. We want it to be like a thick paste. And we're going to just mix it up. So if you're just joining us, this is a super easy project. Just take some time, flour, water, and warmth. We have a question.
Well, no, just a comment. Kaya is here.
Oh, hi, Kaya. Welcome.
Also, if your sourdough starter is making weird colors or streaks, that might be a sign it's going bad.
Yes.
So just let us know.
It's a sign that you definitely want to probably start it over. And this is sort of the consistency I'm going for. It's like this thick, gloppy, gloopy consistency. Like it still slides, but it's like slug slime. So that's what we're sort of hoping for. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cover it loosely because our yeast is alive. It does need to breathe oxygen. If we take out the oxygen, what happens is it goes from what's called aerobic respiration, which is where it takes oxygen and sugar, into something called anaerobic respiration, where it starts to make alcohol instead of carbon dioxide. I think it still makes carbon dioxide, but it also makes alcohol, and that doesn't taste good in your bread. You don't want, well, maybe you do want the taste of wine in your bread.
Looks like Amelia and Chloe threw theirs away.
Oh,
we hope you make a new one.
Yeah, you can make a new one. All right, so this is the other one that we did. We did one with raisin starter too. You can just see there's so much going on in there. I mean, warming it up in our oven like really gently seems to have like really helped our yeast be super happy. Because yeast kind of likes body temperature. But since it gets really big and puffy and you don't want to jar it, like you don't want to put a cap on the jar, I wasn't super jazzed about just like snuggling it and having it maybe explode on me. Because these did actually explode into the extra pan when we had it warming in our oven. And we just put the oven on for like 20 seconds and then turned it off and then plopped them in there. So it was not hot at all when we did that. All right, so I'm just gonna mix this one. We have two because Georgia and Isabella each made a starter, and one of them tried raisins because raisins are a dried fruit. They have lots of yeast on the edges of them to sort of seed our culture. And we have been talking about having like sort of a parent science night, and I think we're gonna make kombucha starter and do some other like artsy science things when we do that. So get prepared to do some more fermenting if you're an adult and you decide to come join us for some adult science on an adult science night. We still got to figure out details. We just thought it would be fun to add in some adult science. If you don't want to come, no pressure. You don't have to come. It's cool. I just love science. I just want to make everybody love science. All right. The other project we're going to check in on, and this is awesome because remember, if you can't make it every single day, you can always check in on the projects and watch them happen here. So there's like no pressure. If you don't want to make a mummy, you can still watch it in action and it's no big deal. So we made mummies on our first week as we learned about osmosis. And we have a couple items mummifying right now. Georgia chose a banana, and her banana is now shrunken down into this teeny tiny little size. And I'm just going to try to get as much salt as I can off of her banana because we've been weighing it and recording it. I don't have our recordings with us right now, so I can't actually remember exactly what hers looked like before, but we can weigh it now. And let's see what she's got. She's got, last week when we did this, it was like 1 3/8 of an ounce of water. Is awesome. All we do, we want to weigh it just to check how much we've lost. And then we're going to take a new plastic baggie and we're going to add a whole bunch of salt to it.
And what's happening to all that water?
So all the water is leaving our banana and going into the salt because during osmosis, water really wants to dilute things. So there's still a whole bunch of water in this banana and there's no water in my salt. And so the water in the banana is like, what is that salt doing? There's so much salt. We've got to go over there and like help them out and dilute it. And so it leaves the banana and it goes into our salt. And then you can add baking soda. And we do this mainly because baking soda and salt was the mixture that Egyptians used. Very similar to the mixture that Egyptians used. And the baking soda helps with smell. Although when you're doing like fruits and stuff, as long as you really have lots of salt on it, you're not going to get any smells. My friends who are doing chickens or chicken drumsticks or some sort of meat, just make sure that you're wearing gloves and you're washing your hands as you're doing this, and that you make sure that you toss your salt into your trash can because those guys are, obviously, we got to be a little more careful with meat. So I just got that, and just zip it on up, and it's ready to hang out for another week now. And you can even see the difference between the two salts. Like this salt, you can see has some brown stuff in it. It's a little bit chunkier. It's not quite so powdery in there. Like you can kind of mold it a little bit. And that's because there's the water that came out of the banana and went into that salt. So if you're doing the mummies with us, you definitely want to do that. Isabella did a lemon. And so just real quick, we can change hers. And again, we would weigh it. And hers is 1 1/8 ounces. So she is also losing a lot of weight in hers, which is awesome. And we're going to just do the same thing. So you're going to add salt to that Ziploc bag. And hers, we're definitely going to add more to a little bit later, just because we are seeming to run out of salt on screen, but that's no big deal. And we'll just put it, I've been putting hers face down just because that was an easier way for the water to get out. And then you can do that. So we're going to let that guy sit and watch. We'll add more salt later on today. But that is our mummy. So we've been doing that for 4 weeks now. And we can continue to do that until you're happy with however your mummy looks. So you choose when you're ready. And if you want to, you can totally wrap your mummy when you're ready with like gauze and stuff. And you can make the sarcophagus. We talked about that as like a fun engineering project. If you're at that point where you feel like your mummy is ready, You can totally make a sarcophagus and wrap it up and write some hieroglyphs. Be a really fun, engaging, project-based learning idea for you guys to really get those kids going. All right, so shall we start? We're gonna zoom in on this little area so that you guys can see it a little bit better as we go. And the first thing I wanted to look at is actually, we are gonna break this motor. Because this motor, when I put it around a battery, and it doesn't matter which way, like LEDs are these one-way streets, motors are two-way streets, doesn't matter which way they go. But if I get them to go onto the battery, oops, I gotta get it just right because these are very short ends. If I get to go on the battery, it starts to vibrate, and you might be like, wow, how does that work? The best way to learn how something works is to break it. So this motor, we're gonna break. And I've got my pliers. I've done this before. I'm pretty sure I did it with these pliers. So I have these two wire leads that are coming in, and there's like a metal piece that is on here that kind of like has it like a tuna can. So I'm gonna try to rip up this metal piece. We'll see. I might just crack it. Let's crack it this way, actually. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Whoop! Oh, that was too much of a crack. All right, I have a awesome tuna can looking at casing here, which is what the casing was. I have these two wires that were coming into the motor. I have my awesome husband, who is also our IT guy, running the comments on YouTube, grabbing stuff for me. All right, I'm just gonna flip this guy back up so that it doesn't hurt me. All right, so our motor has three parts to it. We've got this casing can. We have this guy right here that was sort of on the back piece. And then we have this piece right here. So let's talk about how this actually vibrates. If you look at these little tiny copper pieces right here, those are actually really, really thin wires. And our wires were attached to those, and it was going to run a current through it. And those currents make these loops. And there's this really tricky thing about currents and loops. And when you run a current in a circle like that, you actually make a magnet, which is really cool. So these are actually two little magnets right here. And then this is just a really heavy weight. And you can imagine when you have a really heavy weight and it's going around and around, it shakes things, right? Because it's like wherever that weight is, it's sort of like, it's thrusting that whole item. So it's sort of going all around. So this is spinning around and around. And the reason it's spinning is because these two are magnets, and there's actually, let's see if we can get this piece off. I think it's glued together. This circle right here is a really strong magnet. It's a neodymium magnet. So these guys go through, and they're going to be like attracted and repulsed from that magnet, and that's going to cause this whole thing to swing, because as I run the current through, it's going to change the way this magnet is, and it can change it from liking this magnet to not liking it, which is really handy. And then there's this little tiny thing that's like sticking up here. That's the axle. So this guy sort of sits on this axle. There's a little tiny hole. And let's see if we can get it back together. Yeah. So that it sits on it like that, and then it spins around, and that heavy weight makes the whole thing vibrate, which is exactly what we're looking for. So that's how these magnets work, or these vibrating motors work. In any sort of motor, you're actually using this idea of a current turning into a magnet and a magnet. And that's what makes the motors spin, which is really handy. So I don't know, I thought that would be fun to break because I like breaking things. All right, so to make our project, what we're gonna do is you're gonna need your little cup, whatever you're gonna use, and you're gonna take a piece of copper tape, and we are gonna put it down from the top middle of our cup to the bottom lip. And you can measure it. And I know we have some people joining us for the first time. So when you do this for the first time, there's a couple tricky parts. One of the parts is to get your copper tape started. So you've got to use your fingernail and really sort of get it under there. And the other thing is whenever you use copper tape, you want to make sure that you stick it down to whatever you're sticking it on. So here I'm trying to stick it onto this cup. And you slowly peel this white piece back and stick it as you go. And you might be tempted to say, well, I'm just going to peel it all the way off, and then I'll stick it where I want it to go. But then it gets really curly and really difficult to work with. And copper tape can actually also be kind of sharp. So you don't really want to like wad it up and roll it around in your hands. And then this is all tricky. And you don't want to have a cut in your copper tape either. So once the copper tape breaks, we have to start all over. And the reason for that is if I take two pieces of copper tape and I stick them together just like that, to us, it looks like that is a beautiful wire and that nothing is wrong. For the electrons that are actually going to make our LEDs and our motors go, what they see is they see a nice, beautiful wire up to here, and then they see a whole bunch of glue that they have to stickily climb through to get up to the next wire, and then they can go. And that usually causes your circuit to not work very well. You might get some electrons that can make that jump, that can get through that glue, but you get a lot that can't. And so your LED might light up, but it might not light up that much, and you just have a whole bunch of trouble. So we got to make sure that we stay in one single piece of copper tape. So I like to measure it off beforehand, and you don't have to be super precise. I'm going to get it started with my fingernail, just like this. You just can be really tricky. This is like one of the hardest parts I find. Once you get it scrunched up, then you can tape it down. So we're going to go into the middle of this little cup. I'm going to go straight down to the other, to like the lip of the cup, just like this. And copper tape is great because you can just rip it. So I'll just put my nail down and pull, and it rips up beautifully like that. So I have this nice little line that goes straight down. And then I'm going to tape in my battery. So before I tape in my battery, I want to check that it works. And the way I can check that is either my motor or my LED. And if you're checking with your LED, remember LEDs are one-way streets. So you need to have the long leg on the plus side of the battery and the short leg on the minus. So if I put both legs on the same side of the battery like that, it doesn't work. If I put both legs on the bottom of the battery, it doesn't work. And if I put the short leg on top of the battery and the long leg on the bottom like this, it still doesn't work. But if I take the long leg and put it on the top of the battery and the short leg on the bottom, I will get my little LED to light up. And this is great because it tells me that my battery is working and my LED is working. And if you want to check that your motor is working, you can do the same thing with your motor. I'm actually noticing that on my motor, I have really teeny tiny wires that are coming out. They're like barely there. So what I'm going to do, and if you guys got motors from me and they look like this, that's totally fine. What you can do is you can take like scissors or a sharp knife, and you can just sort of scrape away at just a tiny bit of that plastic. And you just scrape it a few times and it'll start to come off. It's really thin plastic and it's a really thin little wire. But this is sort of one tricky way that you can beat that really small little guy. Let's see, almost through it. And once you get through it, sometimes you can pull the wire out, or if you want, sometimes even with your fingers, it'll work. I can just pull that off with my fingers. And now I have a much, longer piece of that wire that I can connect to my battery, which is really good. I need that to make a really good connection for it to go. So I'm going to do that to the other side too. I see that this is just like maybe 1 millimeter long. It's really short. I'm just going to take something. I mean, scissors will totally work. And you'll notice I've got to take a few passes on this. It's taking just a little bit of time. Patience is perfect in this situation. And as we go, I'm starting to see some of the wire come out so that I have a little bit better wire. If you have wire strippers, those work great in this situation. You just have to be really careful because sometimes those wire strippers might just cut the tiny wires. All right, so now I have 2 long pieces of wire that don't have plastic. And the plastic is really lovely. It's called an insulator, so electrons can't move through the plastic. And it's the way that we keep our wires separated. But it doesn't help if we're connecting it to a battery and we can't actually touch the top and bottom. So the motor, if you go top and bottom, you should just, as you feel it vibrate. The motor doesn't matter if it's red on top and blue on bottom, or blue on top and red on bottom. What that would do is it changes the direction that that little tiny piece was rotating in inside of our motor. But it doesn't really matter because if that piece is rotating, you have that weight moving around and you're good to go. So my motor, my LED that just fell off the table, so we'll grab another one. My LED and my battery all work. And we always want to do this when we work with circuits. You always want to check all your components and make sure they work before, so that you can know, ooh, when you troubleshoot and it doesn't work for you, maybe what could be going wrong. All right, so I'm going to tape my battery in, and I'm going to tape it in so that I can see the little letters that are on here. So I want to see the letters, and I'm just going to tape it in on the sides. And if you've been with me before, you may remember we don't ever tape over straight over the top of the battery because we're going to need to touch the top of our battery to complete our circuit. So I'm just going to take another tiny little strip of tape, and I can tape it in like this so that it's nicely in, and it should be touching that copper tape on the bottom. And maybe even a third piece of tape. You want to tape it in good enough so that it feels secure, but not so good that you're straight over the top. So I still have metal that I can see, and that metal is going to be really, really important. All right, so now we're going to add in our second piece of copper tape, and that's going to connect to the top of the battery. But we're actually just going to run it down over here, and then we're going to have another piece of tape that connects them together. So if this is your first time, we have a couple options. You could either go straight sort of over the corner and we could bend it, or you could come this way. This is even easier, and just go straight down from here. So if you want to take the easier route without bending, because bending can always be a trick, we're going to now peel up this copper tape. So we gotta get our nail under there. We'll peel it up just like that. And then as we peel it, remember we want to stick it straight down. And I don't want these two pieces of copper tape to touch each other. So I need a gap between them. And then I'm going to run this guy down the side of my piece. And you'll notice that nothing is happening, which is great because I don't have an LED or a motor in here. And what we'll do is we actually need to make a switch for our little chef bot. And to make the switch, you just take a little piece of copper tape, rip it off, and we're not even going to take the backing off. We're going to leave the backing on this time. And we're going to tape it to both this wire that has nothing going on to it and to the battery. And remember, it's got to touch that metal part of the battery. So if you cut it a little too short and it's only touching sort of this piece that has tape on it, that won't work. We need to cut ourselves a longer piece of tape. So we're going to tape it just like that. So I'm going to grab my Scotch tape here. And I like Scotch tape, or not Scotch tape, masking tape. I like masking tape a lot because it sticks well. Scotch tape sticks really well too. All right, so I'm going to just double check, and I'm going to tape it straight down so I'm seeing the white. So it's copper to copper, which makes a nice bond for these electrons. They don't have to go through any glue to get there. And then I can tape this down right now, and this will be my switch. So when this is up, my chef bot will be off. And when this is down, my chef bot should be on. And so then we can test with our LED. So if we bend our LED legs, we can test and see, oop, yep, when I touch the long leg to the side that has the switch connected to it, and the short leg to the side that goes under the battery, my LED lights up. And you'll notice if I switch it around, it won't work. So if your LED is not lighting up, the first thing you should do is try to switch it around just like that. So I'm going to get this guy so it's nice and in. And once you know it lights up, what you can do is you can add a piece of masking or Scotch tape straight over those legs to hold them down. Because you'll notice if I don't hold them down, my LED is not lighting up. So I'm going to add a piece of Scotch tape right over this. I'm not too worried about the look of it right now, just because, ooh, I'm noticing actually that I need more pressure here. So if you find you need a little bit more pressure there, we could move it out actually to right here so that it's hitting the top corners a little better. That'll work for us. Let's see, when I tape it in here. There we go. Beautiful. So I just taped it in so that it was on the ridge, on that little rim piece that came up on my cup, so it can make a little bit better contact. All right, and then we can sort of cut the rest of this off. We don't need this extra tape here. Just like that. All right, so now I have my little chef bot who's going to have a light on the top. If you didn't want a light on top, you can skip that part. No big deal. And then we're going to add in our motor. And so our motor just needs to touch the two wires. So one wire goes to one copper piece of tape and one wire goes to the other. And of course, we need to touch the actual copper. So not on top of the masking tape. And let's see if I hit there and here, my battery does make that motor vibrate. And so what I can do is some of these motors have sticky parts on them, and you can peel that white piece of paper off and stick it down. If it doesn't, you could just take a piece of tape and tape over it. I'm just going to tape this guy to the top, and then I'm going to tape these pieces into the copper tape. And you'll notice I'm keeping my switch on for now. And that's just to make sure that as I do this, all of my pieces work. And then when I start to decorate it, I'm actually going to take all of that off because I don't want it to be vibrating around as I'm decorating it. All right, so here we go. We've got our other piece. I don't even need this big of a piece of tape. So we've got this guy right here, and you can hear it, and it's moving. And in fact, it's even moving without any legs, which is awesome and easy. And then when I take this piece of tape up, which is my switch, it's stopped, which is exactly what we want because we want it to be able to stop whenever we need to. So if you want it just like that, you can have it roam around like that. You can also add some legs. So if you want to add some legs, you might have paper clips or toothpicks or straws or whatever. Let's see, I'm going to do blue legs. We'll do some blue legs. So I'm going to pick out 3 legs. And the reason why I do 3 is 3 is sort of like your minimum. If you have 2, you're not going to be, you can topple one way or the other.
Do you want to ask some questions real quick?
Oh yeah, does anybody have questions as we go? You can always type those questions in. And for these guys, for the legs, I'm just going to add some tape into it. And we want them to stick straight out like that. And we'll add some tape. And I want them to all be the same, as close to the same height as I can. And since I have 3, I'm going to sort of put them thirds away. If I were to split my cup into thirds, I would sort of put a paper clip at each third. Or here a toothpick, but you guys probably have your paper clips. You guys are always so prepared. And so you just sort of go for the best bet that you can think of. It doesn't have to be exact. These guys will be fine. And if you have one leg that's too tall and one leg that's too short, what you might get is a little chef bot that goes in circles. And maybe that's what you want. The trick with these is not to get attached with exactly how it moves, mainly because we can't control that. And that's always a really tricky thing when I teach my zombie robots class is like, we don't get to control those robots. They have their own ideas, mainly because they have no brains. And so you can check that it can stand up. Ooh, mine can't stand up. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix that. And I'm going to make this leg shorter so it can stand up better. Or you can maybe add more legs too. That'll be fine too. All right, let's see. See if it stands up now. Oh, nope. Oh, it's not standing up because I'm so heavy in the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put an extra leg off the back of mine. That way he can stand up a little better. Or maybe I'll make this one shorter. Let's make this guy shorter too. And yeah, Evan is checking out the comments for you guys. So if you have questions as we're building these, please do ask. And we'll be in Zoom too. And we have, thankfully, really made these paper circuit projects work. There we go. In Zoom. So some people who have come to Zoom class without their projects working, we've been able to make it to go for us. And so now I can turn this on. And you'll notice that when I have less contact in it, it really runs around. So it runs around a lot better than it did when it just was on the lip of the thing. And that's because there's just a lot less contact. So there's less friction pulling the movement, like trying to hinder that movement. So it can really move around.
Definitely running towards the short leg too.
Yeah. So there is our little chef bot. And then we just have to now decorate, because that's a really important part. So you got to decide what your chef bot's going to look like. My daughter, Georgia, loves Draw So Cute. Oh my goodness. If you have a kid who loves to draw and you have not found that YouTube channel, they draw things that are so cute. And they have little eyes. And they have these eyes that are just so cute. And to do the eyes, you do 2 big circles. And then you do, inside the big circles, you do another big circle that kind of like takes up half of it. And then like a little circle. And you do another big circle and a little circle. So it looks kind of like this. And then you color in the outside of these circles. So you can color in. This is if you want like cute little cartoony eyes. And you guys can do whatever you want for your eyes. I am so excited in Zoom. I really want to see everybody's projects because that is like my favorite part.
And we're going to be troubleshooting circuits in Zoom. So if you have questions there, then we can recreate stuff in there.
Yeah, I mean, we can try to troubleshoot some circuits on YouTube as you ask questions. The trick is it's a lot easier to be able to see it. All right, so I've got cutie little eyes, and I'm going to draw a cute little smile, like a little doop, little smile. And maybe my little chef bot's going to hold like a whisk. I don't know. What does its hands look like? That's going to be its hand. Maybe I'll have it hold like a little whisk. I don't quite know what a whisk might draw like. Maybe like that. I don't know. I'll go with it. And maybe this hand is going to hold, I don't know. What should this hand hold? I have a whisk. Maybe a bowl?
A mask.
A mask. I guess we could put little masks on our guys. This one's going to hold the bowl of cookie dough. Beautiful.
One of the questions we had was Naomi would like us to re-explain the switch step.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me grab another little guy to re-explain our switch. So for the switch, we have, let's see, maybe I should just break my other guy apart. Hang on. So we started with this one piece that came down, and it came straight down the side. And then we also had another piece that sort of came down straight down the side also. And then we had a battery. So if you're struggling with the switch step, yours probably looks like this. You have two pieces that came straight down, and you also have a battery that is taped in here. So let's get our battery taped in. And it's not taped in super well, but that's okay. So you've got something that looks like this, where you've got the battery, and then the battery's on one side of the tape, and then we have this other piece of tape. Now what's going to happen is we're going to take our piece of copper tape to connect these two, so that when I connect anything here, I actually have a full circuit, right? It could go from underneath the battery, through the battery, to the top. And so to do that, I take just a piece of copper tape, and I don't take this white backing off. So the white backing is going to stay on. And I'm just going to flip it over so that I have copper touching copper and metal touching metal. And I can tape this down with some masking tape. Anytime you secure things in copper circuits in place, you want to use sort of a non-metallic tape. So I'm going to just tape it here on one side. So this is the piece that didn't have anything touching the battery. And then I'll tape it here when I want the switch on, and I'll have it open when I want it off. And so then if I had like an LED here, the electrons could go from the bottom of the battery through the LED, down through here, and into the battery again. And we need that full circuit. If the electrons can't get back to their starting point, they won't even run, and they won't light up the thing. So this is where the LEDs might try to leave the bottom, go through their LED, come down, they come up through here, and they're like, there's nothing there, and nothing happens. We don't see anything. But once they realize there's something there, they start running through their little circuit. So that is our switch piece that goes right there. And we just want it flipped over, just a piece of copper tape. If you don't have much copper tape and you want to save it, you could just take a piece of foil too. Would work just as well. And you're just going to make it so that it can make contact with both this little piece that didn't have anything on it and the top of the battery. Yeah, and then I put a piece of tape on here to hold it, and then you can untape it when you want it to be off. Great question, Naomi.
And then Callie is not able to get her LED working, so can you troubleshoot?
Ooh, Callie's not able to get her trouble. Okay, so.
Did she check it with the battery first?
One question would be if you checked the battery first. So we always want to check, even here I can still check it on the battery. I can just go straight to the battery, and I can make sure that that works. Now, Callie, if it's working on the battery but not in your setup that we have like here, there's a couple things that could happen. So one is make sure, I want you to double check that it doesn't work either way. So like if you have it flipped over maybe like this, my LED doesn't work either. So I want you to make sure your long leg is on the side that goes to the top of the battery. So this guy right here, this wire, it comes down, and then I have that little switch we just made, and it goes to the top of the battery. So I could write like a little L for the long leg, and I could write a little S on the other one for the short leg. And so you do need to make sure that your long leg is on the long side and your short leg is on the short side. So that's one thing to check. If you check that and you're like, I definitely know my long leg is going, I follow it and I go down the copper tape and I go over to the switch and I go to the top of the battery. I'm 100% positive that's the one. Awesome. So I want to make sure that you're pressed down first before you tape it and make sure that we're making good contact. And then maybe it's possible that like your battery is not making great contact with the bottom piece. See if I have it not taped in well. My guy is no longer working. So you could also press on your battery. So if you press your LEDs and your battery at the same time, hopefully that will make it work. And if it does, then you can tape in your LEDs legs and see, does that make it stop? Because if when you tape in your LED legs and it stops, we know it's getting the LED legs to touch this metal better. If it doesn't stop, it stops when you stop pressing on your battery. We know that the battery is not making good contact with the bottom, so we just want to tape that battery in a little tighter. If you feel like you can't, you could even put a clip that sort of goes right there. And if it's still not working when you're pressing on both of these, well, if it doesn't work when we're pressing on the battery, then we know we're not getting good contact. Let's say it works, but then we take it up, even when we're pressing like this, it could also be that your switch is not making great contact. So of course, if I have that switch open, everything stops. So those are a couple things to check if your LED is not working for you. And make sure that you do tape these LEDs in, because even if it was working like it was working for mine, when it's sitting there, it's gonna move. And you have to tape in each leg. It doesn't have to be independently. You can use the same piece of masking tape, but both legs do need to have tape connecting them to that wire. If you just tape one leg in, what always happens is the other leg kind of makes good contact, but not great contact. And so sometimes it's on and it's not always on, and that can be really frustrating.
All right, so Zoom is open.
All right, so we got our Zoom classroom open. So if you're a patron of ours, you will have that Zoom link with our password to get into the Zoom classroom. And we hang out there and have lunch together all the time, and we will troubleshoot your projects. It's super easy to become a patron. You just go to patreon.com/RosieResearch, and it's pay what you can. And we will be here all the way into this, like up to summer, because Washington State canceled our schools for the rest of the year. So we are here doing science, trying to make it so that you guys have something you can count on the days that you need us. So if that means you want to schedule for Mondays and Tuesdays and you want to come Mondays and Tuesdays, totally awesome. If it means you want to come every Friday for circuits, come every Friday for circuits. Not a big deal. I am not taking attendance, obviously. We are just here having a ton of fun. So do what works for you, and we will be here to support you guys through that.
Although we do notice if you're a regular and you're gone.
We do. It's true. I know, because Raven's not here today. Has he said anything?
There's nothing from Raven.
I bet Raven will do it this weekend though, and he'll be really happy that we missed him. I'm sure he will. I can't imagine Raven not doing one of our projects. It would shock me. So, all right. So, if there's not any other questions on YouTube, we can go over to Zoom, which will be handy because you can actually show me what your project looks like, and I can take a look and try to see what is not making connection for you. And I just want to say thanks for joining us this week. Next week, we're doing Pirate Week. So we'll be building ships. We'll be making submarines that can sink and float. We have a really awesome calm down jar that we're going to be making that looks at buoyancy, and we're going to float oil droplets in a liquid water combination. And you might be in your head being like, Dr. Erica, oil always floats on water. And I just want to say, next week, we're going to change that. Kind of. I mean, it's still always floats on water, but we're going to change it with magic. Okay, not magic, science, because science is awesome. It's going to be amazing. So next week we have Pirate Week, and you guys should have gotten an email with all of the supplies you're going to need. It's pretty simple supplies. And again, if you need some of these circuit supplies and you can't get them because I know Amazon's not shipping, you can always email me your address and I'll put a little thing together for you guys to get that going. So thank you for joining us. Make sure you like us, share our message on social media, have all your friends come, and we will see you on Monday as we start Pirates. And everybody else, I'll see you in Zoom right now. Have a good one. All right.
All right, we have...
I'm going to make a chef hat for my chef. I think that.
All right, guys, I'm going to